Welcome back to our channel, dear viewers. Today is a truly beautiful day to dive deep into the heart of Port Charles. We always love sharing these moments with you, exploring the rich tapestry of our favorite daytime drama. As a longtime viewer who has watched the streets of Port Charles evolve over the decades, I find myself completely captivated by the current trajectory of General Hospital. I have seen mob bosses rise and fall, and I have witnessed vendettas that span generations. But the brewing confrontation between Sonny and Jen Sidwell feels uniquely charged with a palpable electric tension. We are standing on the precipice of a monumental shift in the power dynamics of this town. Do I believe this will be a simple shootout? Absolutely not. The writers are meticulously crafting a narrative that promises to reveal long-awaited truths, and I can feel the intensity of the issue radiating from the screen. The sheer anticipation of Sonny finally delivering a shocking revelation to Sidwell is enough to keep any dedicated fan on the edge of their seat, eagerly awaiting the next twist in this labyrinthine plot. Let us first examine the incredibly reckless, yet entirely characteristic, actions of Carly Spencer as she prepares to infiltrate the dark and foreboding grounds of Windermere. Over the years, I have watched Carly rush headlong into danger more times than I can count, always driven by that fierce, unyielding maternal instinct. Is it a wise decision for her to ignore Valentine Cassadine's explicit warnings? Certainly not, but it is precisely what makes her Carly. She is marching into the lion's den to save her daughter Jocelyn, and she is doing so with a level of desperation that is both terrifying and deeply moving. I cannot help but fear for her safety, knowing the sinister forces that currently occupy Spoon Island. The Gothic architecture of Windermere has always been a backdrop for tragedy, and Carly's solo mission feels like a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate. What truly astounds me, however, is Carly's backup plan. Relying on young Danny Morgan and Charlotte Cassadine to serve as her failsafe is a decision that speaks volumes about the desperation of her current situation. She has instructed these children to alert Sonny if she does not make contact by 8 o'clock in the evening. Why involve the younger generation in such a perilous game? I suppose it highlights the shrinking circle of trust Carly has in these dark times. Yet, as someone who has watched these families for years, I find it deeply troubling to see the innocence of youth dragged into the murky waters of mob violence and WSB espionage. It reminds me of the old days when the Spencer and Cassadine feuds first began, infecting every generation. The stakes have never been higher, and the inclusion of Danny and Charlotte adds a layer of profound anxiety to an already explosive scenario. This elaborate setup inevitably leads to the catastrophic event slated for the 1st of July, where Sonny walks right into a meticulously laid trap. How does a seasoned mob boss like Sonny, a man who has survived decades of assassination attempts and betrayals, find himself cornered? It is his tragic flaw, his unwavering commitment to protecting those he considers family. When the call comes, presumably triggered by Carly's failure to check in, Sonny will not hesitate. He will charge into the fray, and that predictability is exactly what his enemies are counting on. I can envision the scene vividly, the shadows of the estate closing in on him, the sudden realization that he has been outmaneuvered. It is a testament to the enduring complexity of Sonny's character that his greatest strength, his loyalty, is continually weaponized against him by adversaries like Sidwell. The mechanics of this trap are further complicated by the involvement of Cassius Faison, the man masquerading as Nathan West. Cassius is a master manipulator, and his assistance provides Sidwell with a crucial window of opportunity to escape. Will Sidwell simply take this chance and vanish into the night? No, that would contradict the very essence of his character. Sidwell is a man consumed by pride and a twisted sense of obligation. Despite the clear path to freedom facilitated by Cassius, Sidwell is compelled to stay and confront Sonny. This decision is fascinating to me because it illustrates the destructive nature of vengeance. Sidwell could walk away, but the ghosts of his past are anchoring him to this deadly confrontation, ensuring that blood will be spilled before the night is over. The situation escalates to a terrifying degree with the introduction of a hostage, and the identity of this unfortunate soul is what makes the dynamic so incredibly compelling. Assistant District Attorney Justine Turner finds herself caught in the crossfire, her life suddenly hanging by a thread at the hands of Jen Sidwell. Why, Justine? Perhaps it is a crime of opportunity, or perhaps Sidwell recognizes the leverage a high-profile legal official provides. I find it deeply ironic that Justine, a woman who has dedicated her career to prosecuting criminals like Curtis Ashford, is now entirely dependent on the town's most notorious mobster for her survival. This unexpected convergence of the legal world and the criminal underworld is a classic soap opera trope, beautifully executed here to maximize the dramatic tension and force characters into unimaginable alliances. As we move into the events of the 2nd of July, the true psychological warfare begins. Sonny, despite being trapped and facing a desperate man holding a hostage, manages to seize control of the narrative. How does he accomplish this? Not with a weapon, but with a devastating piece of information. Sonny is preparing to drop a bombshell on Sidwell, a revelation that will fundamentally alter the landscape of their conflict. I have always appreciated Sonny's ability to read his opponents, to find the singular thread that, when pulled, unravels their entire reality. In this tense standoff, Sonny realizes that Sidwell is operating under a massive delusion regarding his partnership with Ross Cullum, and Sonny is about to shatter that illusion into a million pieces. The truth that Sonny reveals is nothing short of earth-shattering. It was Ross Cullum, not Sonny, who orchestrated the fatal attack on Marco Rios. For months, Sidwell has harbored a burning hatred for Sonny, believing him to be the architect of his profound grief. To learn that his own ally, the man he has been working alongside, is the true murderer is a psychological blow of epic proportions. How will Sidwell process this information? I can imagine the sheer disbelief morphing into a blinding, consuming rage. Sonny is effectively telling Sidwell to look in the mirror, to reflect on how his unholy alliance with Cullum directly paved the way for Marco's tragic demise. It is a masterful stroke of manipulation and truth-telling combined, a signature move from a mob boss who understands that the mind is far more fragile than the body. I must delve deeper into the emotional weight of this revelation. Sidwell is a man drowning in sorrow and a thirst for retribution. He made a solemn promise to Marco to avenge the death of Natalia Ramirez, and he has been singularly focused on making Sonny pay that debt. Even when confronted with the undeniable truth of Cullum's betrayal, can Sidwell simply let go of his vendetta against Sonny? I argue that he cannot. The human mind, especially one fractured by grief, often clings to its original purpose even when the facts change. Sidwell will undoubtedly redirect a massive portion of his fury toward Cullum, but the inertia of his hatred for Sonny will not dissipate instantly. He is a cornered animal, deeply unpredictable and incredibly dangerous, making this standoff one of the most volatile moments I have witnessed on this show in years. This brings me to the fascinating concept of the final favor. Why does Sonny bother to tell Sidwell the truth at all? If Sonny knows this situation is likely to end in lethal violence, why not just take the shot? I believe it speaks to a very old, deeply ingrained code of honor that Sonny still loosely follows. It is the granting of a final favor to a condemned man. Sonny wants Sidwell to know the truth before he dies. He wants him to understand exactly who betrayed him. It is a dark, almost poetic form of respect between adversaries. By revealing Cullum's guilt, Sonny ensures that Sidwell does not die in ignorance. It is a chilling reminder of the complex morality that governs Port Charles's underworld, where even in the face of death, certain truths must be acknowledged. The climax of this confrontation is shaping up to be an absolute bloodbath, and the spoilers suggest a resolution that is both shocking and poetically just. It appears that Sonny will not be acting alone in the final moments of Jen Sidwell's life. ADA Justine Turner, pushed to the absolute brink of human endurance, is poised to become an unlikely ally in this lethal struggle. Can you imagine the sheer intensity of a sworn officer of the court joining forces with a mob boss to take a life? It is a scenario that forces us to question the very nature of justice and survival. When faced with a madman who has nothing left to lose, the lines between right and wrong blur into a desperate fight for the next breath. I am entirely convinced that Sonny and Justine will be the ones to finally end Sidwell's reign of terror. The mechanics of how this will unfold are ripe for speculation. Will Sonny create a distraction that allows Justine to strike, or will they act in desperate, simultaneous unison? Whatever the choreography of the scene, the emotional impact will be staggering. Sidwell's death will not just be the elimination of a threat, it will be the tragic conclusion of a man who was ultimately destroyed by his own misplaced loyalties and his inability to see the true monsters hiding in his own camp. The visual of Sonny and Justine standing over Sidwell's body will undoubtedly become one of the defining images of this television season. The aftermath of this lethal encounter will send shock waves through every corner of Port Charles, profoundly altering the trajectories of several key characters. Let us first consider Justine Turner. How can she possibly return to the courtroom, standing on her moral high ground, to prosecute Curtis Ashford after she has literally bloodied her hands alongside Sonny Corinthos? I predict a massive psychological crisis for the ADA. The trauma of being held hostage, combined with the visceral reality of taking a life, will shatter her rigid worldview. This experience will forge an unspoken, unbreakable bond between her and Sonny, a secret pact written in blood that could compromise her entire career and change the legal landscape of the city forever. Furthermore, the elimination of Jen Sidwell dramatically shifts the focus of the ongoing WSB narrative. With Sidwell dead, Ross Cullum is left exposed and vulnerable. Cullum may believe he is untouchable, operating under the dark umbrella of the WSB, but he has just made a lethal enemy out of Sonny Corinthos. Sonny has now tied up the loose ends regarding Marco and Natalia, and his sights will be laser focused on the man who is currently torturing his stepdaughter Jocelyn and holding Liesl Obrecht captive. The death of Sidwell is merely the opening salvo in what I anticipate will be a brutal, unyielding war between the Corinthos organization and the rogue elements of the WSB.